What's going on, guys, and welcome back. We got 3 new cards coming this month, and they're probably the best we've gotten yet. MODOK is now out. How do you counter the new Season Pass card? And finally, Zabu, Surfer are finally nerfed. What are the new top 10 cards in Marvel Snap? We're going to talk all that and more on today's episode of the Snapchat. And as always, I am joined by Mr. Alex. It's the beginning of February. How you doing? Moments before, guys, we literally changed these subjects because Zabu and Surfer have been nerfed. Zabu has been Mufasa'd, as I'd like to say, and it's Major Man. How you doing?
I'm doing great. I love that. Zabu got Mufasa just thrown off, right? Big sad Simba.
100% on Rotten Tomatoes, just saying. Alex, what are we talking about on your side of the channel? We got a lot of great subjects, some of my favorites, especially to start the month out.
Yeah, we're going to be talking about the Zabu and Surfer nerf, which is like really significant. It completely opens up the design landscape for deck building once again, because these two cards have really had a kind of like compression effect on the meta, because it's been like, hey, these two cards are super OP. You either play them in rank or you really try to be contrarian. So I'm really excited to see the new design landscape for deck building. We're also going to talk about the MODOK Season Pass. We're going to talk about its value and what we think and give it a little quick review and kind of go over a few things about it. And finally, we're going to talk about cards that need the Wolverine treatment.
Yeah, man. Again, you hit it perfectly, saying that these two cards have such a big impact. And the thing is, like, you could find really cool decks, unique combinations, but at the end of the day, it just didn't matter because Zabu and Surfer, that's, you know, what you went up against. And then if you had a cool combination, you're like, this is awesome, until you ran into those decks. And so I don't know if there's 2 cards they could have nerfed that drastically changed what we've been seeing in January. Again, I say the meta deck report, it was pretty much the Zabu deck report, and a lot of just kind of toxic combos too kind of got adjusted, like obviously Spider-Man and Absorbing Man, so I'm excited to talk about that on your side. But yeah, February brings a lot. First of all, we got the new Ant-Man and the Wasp Quantumania movie. I always think it's cool when Marvel Snap gets to coincide with a movie release, right? And it's going to be fun to see the crazy MODOK, who again just is a fun card, but man, what a villain, Alex.
Yeah, and I mean, I'm just trying to like start catching up by reading and stuff like that. I've been reading a lot about Kang, which is pretty cool. I'm really excited about the movie too, and again, having the tie-ins with the game. Like, honestly, as someone who's a very casual Marvel fan before Marvel Snap, I mean, if someone at Disney was like, maybe this really good card game is going to help the brand, yes, it did, because I am all the way in now, and it's because of Marvel Snap. So I'm going to the movie on opening night, actually in New York with a lot of the other content creators. We're going to be going together, which is fantastic.
Awesome, buddy. Yeah, I think it's, I'm just excited to see the new Marvel Big Bad on camera, right? Like Thanos, whenever he grabbed the gauntlet and he's like, I'll do it myself. That was like so hype going into the next movie. And now we finally get Kang, who's going to make his arrival. And Kang is insane. I won't spoil if you don't know about him, but we'll talk about him as a new card today. On that note, let's go to get to today's subjects. And we're going to start with February's new cards incoming. Speaking of Kang, let's get to these new cards. So we have 3 cards coming, opposed to the 4 that we had last month. Zabu is now available as well. And he's nerfed and adjusted, so that's going to be a bit interesting. Probably wouldn't buy him at the full token cost anymore. But the cards we have first is Stature. And Alex, before we go into all of the new cards, I've got to say, just at a quick glance, this is by far, it's going to be up there with December, but I think as a whole, this is the best cards we've seen come out, you know, as a group.
It's an amazing crop of cards. And the thing that really sticks out to me is that, like, you're talking about Stature, you're talking about cards that are going to really amplify existing cards too. And that's when I get really excited, because, I mean, I don't want to spoil anything, but do we get to talk about Black Bolt? Do we get to talk about Black Bolt today or what?
Finally we get to. Yeah, I think, yeah, for sure. You're correct, man. I mean, the fact that we have 2 of the cards here that are kind of plug and playable, like Null's great, Darkhawk's great, but they're kind of in their own niche places, especially now. And it's great to have cards that can fit into any deck. And then Stature is also one that you can kind of have as a utility card, and it's one that I want to start with. So guys, Stature is going to be a 5/7, as you guys can see here, and she can be reduced down to 1 cost if your opponent discarded 1 card the whole game, the entire game, and she's going to be a 1/7 from that point on. So again, like Miles Morales on a little bit of steroid juice. Alex, there's a couple things I like about Stature. Obviously, first, we get to see Black Bolt come to life. We got to talk about that. But I like that she is a counter card in a sense for your opponent playing an archetype, right? And I want to open up with like Death kind of does that in a way with Destroy, but they're going to have Death too. So I want to start to see this, and I think Stature is a great way to open up. What do you think? What are your opening thoughts about the card?
I think it's neat because the other card that really stuck out to me is Moon Knight. Another good card that like obviously discards from your opponent's hand, which should be disruptive. And like this is just a card. I really like that it doesn't have the Morales effect where like it has to be the prior turn, right? So you have all these different variables that suddenly come together to make this card more versatile than something like Morales is. Although realistically, move is a lot easier to execute on rather than like discarding someone else's card, right? So ultimately, like, I'm super excited about the card, but namely, like, I love the variant. Every time you bring up this variant, I can't help but laugh. Okay, you have to do the audio viewers proper and explain what is happening in this variant.
You know, it's kind of like he's saying, like, hey, everybody in this camp counseling group, I just did a silent but deadly. And he's showing the motion of a silent but deadly. He is giving the shush or the one. It's honestly great. I have a really cool Black Bolt variant in this guy right here. And it's awesome. You get Lockjaw in there, but I'm like, how do I not play this? This is so great.
So funny looking.
And honestly, I think he's saying nobody will know that he's going to end up being a pretty good card and is honestly still a little bit underrated. He does his job well. You know, Alex, you brought up Moon Knight, and I think that brings up a good point about Stature. This card is known as being casino kind of, right? You don't really know what's going to happen. And Black Bolt right now is the clear winner of Stature synergy, because with Moon Knight, he can get rid of one of your cards. That could be Stature. That could literally be the card you want to reduce if it's in your hand, right? But then if you don't have her, you can get her later, and then she'll still be a 1/7. So Moon Knight is going to get value. Another iconic character that's just not played enough, in my opinion, as well. But isn't this, I mean, I think she fits in really well. And do you like kind of having cards that can counter decks that your opponent plays?
Absolutely. I mean, who wouldn't love those kind of cards? I mean, I think we need more of those cards.
Yeah.
Cards with universal appeal, but also cards that like really work well in conjunction with cards that are being underplayed. And like we use Morales as an example. Like it was kind of like a little bit of a boost for move decks, but it ultimately wasn't really enough. And there's even move lists that just don't even use Morales. And I actually think it's a really good card. But now you have an opportunity to be legitimately disruptive. And yes, listen, the actual proper card counter to like Bayro Death was Leader. And well, rest in peace, Leader. Now Black Bolt steps in and says, hey, I can take that spot. We'll just discard the Death. And so that's pretty good. But like, this is only really prevalent if Death becomes incredibly prevalent. And then all of a sudden, this type of archetype will then start to really shine. But with that being said, I think that always discarding and disrupting opponent's hand can be valuable, right?
Yep.
You don't know what you're going to hit. You might hit Silver Surfer if they're holding all threes.
Exactly. That's the thing. Right now, we're in this kind of like 3-cost dominant turn 6 play. And so like Mystique, Surfer, getting rid of those big combo cards is always huge. You know, it's not going to hit the value that Leech does just to like completely nullify it. But what I like about Black Bolt too is there's other things you can do with him. And I'm excited for him to get more play. He's already usable in ramp decks. I've been putting him in a hella ramp deck.
I think that one of the risks is going to be that, like, I know that from a game design perspective, developers often don't want the opposing player to be able to overly impact the other player's hand. And when you start to consider, we have Iceman, you have Moon Knight, you have Black Bolt. And what if you play all those cards in conjunction with someone like Black Widow? Like the opposing player is just not drawing, not playing on curve, not playing efficiently. And like they have like no pool of cards to play with. Like suddenly that can feel a little restrictive. So I wonder what that starts to look like.
Yeah, it feels disruptive, right? And I think the archetype probably could get a boost. It's kind of the same with like debris just everywhere. And it's like, God, I can't do anything with these locations clogged, you know? But you bring up a good point, right? Like cards that prevent that are extremely toxic and people don't like it. So let us know what y'all's thoughts are on that, right? Do you like that toxic and disrupt might get a bump up? Is that something that you hate? If you commit to the archetype, is that great? Let us know. But for the next card, this is a universal card. And our first one we're going to talk about, one personally, I think opens up a lot of doors, Alex. And I just get excited about 1-cost drops. Like, I like 1-cost cards. We've got Ghost, who is a 1/2, and it has an ongoing ability that cards are always revealed last. Kind of the shifting that priority, if you will. And Alex, Ghost seems extremely interesting to me. Like, I think Ghost has a lot of potential. I need to know how it's going to work, right? So perfect example, turn 5, let's say, we have Ghost down, and then you play Shang-Chi. Your opponent is going to have Red Skull. You have the priority, but then you play Ghost. Does it stop everything, and then they reveal Red Skull, and then you reveal Shang-Chi, or is it post-turn? And I think that's going to probably make a pretty big dramatic turn. If it's mid-turn, bro, that's such a good idea for a card. I love it.
I believe the development team did actually clarify that the initiative cannot change amidst a turn.
Oh, man.
Don't quote me for sure, but I'm almost 99% positive I read that on the Discord.
So do you like it still with that? Do you think it's going to be played? I like that it has an ongoing ability, so you have to play it early.
Honestly, like, I'm not sure. Like, this is one of the ones where I'm like, you know what? Like, I don't actually fully know how I would use this card yet. Like, it is a really unique effect. It's really interesting because of the way that, it fits perfectly the mold of the character Ghost itself. And I just don't quite know how to design a deck around it where that is a key advantage, because it can also be a disadvantage, right? Oh, yeah. So I think the deck building consideration of it is a lot more complex than maybe is first noticeable. Like, there's definitely going to be some major considerations required to make this deck truly functional. I just don't have an answer for you.
It unlocks a lot of creativity, put it that way. There's not often times that we get hit with a card that's like, it's going to take, honestly, this card and the next card we talk about, it's going to take some time to truly see the major decks that come and affect it. I mean, right off the rip, I think that so right now, Galactus should be played with Electro. Mostly the turn 5 is the way to go. I think with the Ghost coming in, I think Wave Galactus is going to get a lot better, because this card is almost insane with Galactus, because you always don't want the priority, and you just sit there and you wait for your opponent to play their cards, and you Shang away, or you Valkyrie, or whatever you want to try to do. Probably Valkyrie for that matter. It's kind of crazy to go to make the 1 cost 3. So yes, I do think it's going to be very interesting where the card goes, and the good news is pretty much no one's going to get this right away. So by the time you guys can even unlock the card, the meta strategies, the pros, if you will, are going to figure out the card, and then you can know if you want to buy it or not, you know?
Absolutely. And I mean, once you start to understand, like, kind of like how the card can be used to like a key advantage, like, I think you're bringing up Galactus, and that's absolutely correct. I think that it really starts to open up the possibilities for different decks and different archetypes. But the key thing is, this is a 1 cost. And this has an impact, if you drop it on 1, for the entire game. So there are cards across the entire spectrum of costs that could benefit, or it could be a detriment in the case of someone like Cosmo, right? So I don't know. It's just a really fascinating card. And I think you nailed it perfectly, where you're like, it's just interesting. It's fascinating, and it's a really unique design.
Well, Alex, that brings us to our final card that will be released. And guys, sometimes I look at the cards and I question, do I buy it now? Do I wait? No question, I'm dropping the 6K big ones on Kang the Conqueror. Easily next to Galactus, one of the most unique cards to come to Snap. No question about it. It's Daredevil on steroids. Kang is going to be a 5/0, and on reveal keyword, look at what your opponent did, then restart the turn without Kang. This is so crazy to think about. And honestly, Alex, I don't know why you wouldn't have Kang in a lot of decks. I mean, he seems wild to me, because if you think about it, your opponent gets to you know, essentially play whatever they want. You get to see what they're doing. So if they throw a Cosmo, if they throw an arrow, you just change your plans. You just shift up your plans. And then even more crazy is that if you draw Kang, you restart the turn. I assume if you don't draw Kang, you get the same card. You know, let's say you get Brood. But if you draw Kang, do you just get the next card in your deck, making it a +1 card draw as well? Like, that's going to be very niche situations. I don't even know where to start with Kang, man. What are your initial thoughts on the new big bad of Marvel?
I'm not sure if it'll draw an additional card. Like, I think it just restarts the turn. It doesn't start a new turn, right? Like, if you think about the phases of the game, I don't think it'll draw another card, but I mean, I don't know. We haven't seen it been played, right?
It's odd.
That's a good point. Like, because I mean, Agatha, a lot of people don't realize it, but like, Agatha is an additional card in your hand.
Yep.
Right. So if Kang brings in another card to replace itself, that kind of fits the tone of what Agatha does, right? And what we've seen in the past. So it's not a crazy thing, but I'm not sure if it works like that. What I will say, though, is it is obviously immensely powerful. Getting to, like, we've talked about why Daredevil's good. because turn 5 is a pivotal turn. Like, it's pivotal. Like, it is such an important turn, and it's the turn before the end of the game, basically. So being able to just like see their full move and then like reset the turn is kind of interesting. I wonder if it's really that much better than Daredevil. Like, I know it is.
Oh, yeah.
But like, I know it is, but at the same time, like, if you catch them with their pants down, Daredevil lets you execute on that. Whereas when Kang resets the turn, they can be like, okay, he knows what I'm doing now. I'm going to switch it, or I'm going to do. So there is some counterplay there.
Yeah, I mean, so I think, here's the thing. I think it creates a lot of head games. I think it creates a lot of hybrid decks. Battle mode, this thing's going to be awesome. And in tournament play, I think it'll be really cool too, because do you restart what you did? I think it's going to award decks that have multiple play options, which is unique, right? Like, if you're dead set on doing X combo, then, you know, it's going to be tough. But if you have multiple options as your opponent, you can then just continue to kind of play a couple head games yourself. Now, Daredevil, here's the thing. You don't have to play it on 5. I think it's going to be better on 6. So then do you combine it with Daredevil? And then you do Daredevil on 5? And then you do Kang on 6? Like, I think turn 6 Kang is going to be more valuable most of the time. Again, another great example, Galactus. Okay, you can see if the Cosmo comes out, whatever. But Kang is really, the person who plays Kang is always going to have more information most of the time than the person that didn't play Kang. And I think that's going to really open up and continue to level up what I love about Snap, and that is the mind games that exist behind it. And I think he should be balanced pretty well. I'm not too worried about Mr. Negative. I don't think you want to play him, you know, too early. He could be a free play, which is kind of nice, but you don't get to keep him, right? Because he's going to get rid of himself. But now what's interesting is, what if you do Kang on 5? Can you do Absorbing Man on 6, or does Kang not exist anymore? But if it's anything like Taskmaster, he scans the death graveyard and still gets his points. So I wonder how that's going to work, Alex.
Yeah, I'm not sure. Thanks for bringing that up. So now everyone's going to try it and ruin everyone's games for the next 2 weeks.
Two turns.
I didn't give enough consideration of playing Kang on 6 and how impactful that can be. Because for me, I was like, hey, turn 5, what do we do with it, right? Like, you're right. Playing it on turn 6 might actually be, of course, the ideal play, right? Because then you can completely reset the board state, and you actually see basically their trump card, right? You get to see what the core of their play was. So I kind of stand corrected here. I think you nailed it. I think that like the turn 6 Kang is probably legitimately an absolutely broken effect. And I can't believe it had to like come to you telling me for this to enter my mind. I guess I need to get more sleep, but you're right. It's crazy. It is a crazy effect. And do you think this is going to be like a forever Series 5 card? Like, is that where we're at?
No
right
question,
now?
no question. But here's the thing. I think cards like Galactus and one that's coming out soon, and then Thanos are just the big bads, right? They're going to be the Series 5 Forever cards because they change the way the game is played. And just like when Galactus came out, I think it rocked a lot of people's worlds, and like you just were never expecting it. So if you climbed early with Galactus, dude, infinite cards, super easy. Now, yeah, people know. People know. And I think Kang is going to be the same. The first couple weeks, man, people are going to be like, what in the hell? I don't have this is crazy. And I think people will get used to it, but there's no way to tell if Kang's coming. He can be in any single deck, and he should be in a lot of decks. And so Kang, again, easy 6K. So out of these 3, are you buying any of them right when they come out? Is it Kang? What are your thoughts?
I think I'd be most interested in buying Kang. However, I'm most likely to buy Stature just because I want to play Black Bolt.
Yeah, right, dude. I love that. That's good. I know Ghost, it's funny. Ghost, I'm probably going to end up getting all 3, but Ghost to me seems like the one I would wait on. Just to see again how it evolves, right? So those are going to be the February cards, some pretty insane ones, and stay tuned. We'll talk about them weekly as they come out. Alex, let's get to our next subject, countering MODOK. And MODOK is luckily at a pretty good spot. You know, I do like, we'll talk about it on your side, but I do like that he, you know, kind of helps out a faction. He gives life to a faction for a guy that only kills. And MODOK is a card that, you know, he kind of has that new card effect. Blows people away. They're not expecting it. So that's how he's getting his more quick wins, if you will. We've seen Dazzler. We've seen some of these other ones settle in now that people can expect it. So with MODOK, let's talk counters. And I want you to hit me with only one card, because we have a couple for MODOK. What counter do you like right off the bat?
I mean, I actually thoroughly enjoyed countering others with Enchantress, because one of the key things that people are playing with MODOK is Morbius Mystique. That is the combo to play. And when you drop an Enchantress on that Morbius or that Mystique, it is big, sad, easy snaps.
Yep. Okay. I'm glad you started here because I see a lot of Cosmos, right? And I'm like, guys, don't worry about the Cosmos because what they're trying to do outside of Hela, which we'll get to, but what they're trying to do, the easy clap, is the Morbius Mystique, like you said. And I like, again, I love the way of thinking. I like that you said Enchantress. My head goes instantly to Rogue because I like that as well, especially if you plan on playing the deck. You might as well just take another Morbius, for one extra cost. That to me is the biggest counter. It's getting rid of this guy because this is the pool 2 huge accessible card that everybody is kind of abusing. I've gotten one up to 38 power, man. Like Morbius is such a fun card though, and I am glad that he's more relevant now.
Yeah, getting him over like 14 is surprisingly easy. And you're really, oh, Alex, that's only 14. That's not that hard. He's a 2 cost. Like, let's not forget it's a 2 cost. We're talking about a 214. Right. He's broken with this list. It's just so good. Like any list with MODOK right now with the Morbius Hela is just wild. And I actually really like MODOK a lot. I think he's powered right as a 580, has impact. I think he's working really well. And when you talk about the Cosmo, I think a lot of people talk about like Cosmo in conjunction with like, oh, they're going to play Invisible Woman and you're going to drop the Cosmo in front. I am not seeing nearly as much Hela discard with MODOK because I think it's A, easy to counter, and B, way less reliable than the Morbius and Mystique play. Because Mystique and Morbius, 2-3. It's such an easy like deck, straightforward play style.
Yeah, without question. And I think what I like about MODOK is that you can play him on 5, you can play him on 6. He has some unique mechanics about him. And we're not here to boost up and talk about the card, but obviously like She-Hulk and him on turn 6 is filthy. There's a lot of different, interesting mechanics that you can play. By far, Alex, I can say no question, Wong and MODOK have been my go-to. Them two together, 4-5, and then you swarm it up and blow them all to hell. So yeah, those are going to be, again, the ongoing is where you want to take advantage of for MODOK. And for that example too, right, who has an ongoing effect that, Hela is pretty prevalent in as well. Obviously, guys, Invisible Woman, same exact deal. Now, I would say, don't do it on 3. Let it cook. Let it cook. Let them put a couple discard options. Let them put MODOK in there if they've got priority. Then you screw them. Then you get rid of the Hela they had in hand and get rid of the ongoing effect for Invisible Woman. So, do you have another card at the top of your head that you find pretty good?
Yeah, I'm glad you asked because with Invisible Woman, it's a great counter that almost no one really gives credit to.
I hope you say
Polaris.
Ooh, yeah, let's go. That's
Polaris will just pull her. Who are you thinking I was going to say? I was going to say Polaris the whole time. Now you got me excited because there's another one. Look at that chibi variant. That's actually a really nice chibi variant.
The only chibi that I've picked, this is such like a badass card, but I had to go chibi. I just love the glow, the green glow.
Truthfully, Polaris is so surprisingly effective. It's a 3/5 power. It really disrupts the Invisible Woman, and it just makes it so that like if they play a card there, like their Hellcow or not Hellcow, but Swordmaster, whatever it happens to be, and then like Invisible Woman's just like whoop, I'm moving. It's like, oh my god. You can even play her on turn 5 with a 2-drop. Obviously you can play her even on turn 6 if you're playing Surfer. If you have initiative, pull the card out, discard everything, then the Hela drops, and like it's a complete disaster, right? So pretty interesting counterplay towards the Invisible Woman Polaris, I would say.
Yeah, I do. I like it a lot, and it's adding 5 power to your side as well. So better than Enchantress, better than Rogue as well. So I like that a ton. Polaris is she's easily one of my favorites to throw in for the counter. And that being said, right, Hela, what if they don't play Invisible Woman? People are starting to get a little smart, Alex, and not play Invisible Woman all the time and kind of hope for some RNG luck. Maybe they go the Lockjaw route. Guys, another counter. Really what it comes down to is Hela can't play cards if there's nowhere to play the cards. And that's why, in my opinion, I think both, obviously, the Goblins are great. Let's go ahead and clear and clog up the Invisible Woman lane. Let's clog up other lanes so Hela can't bring it up. And same as Debris, man. Debris does the same thing. She just massacres lanes. And if you combine some of these, right, and if you look at it, right, Polaris, Debris, both of those in the new Silver Surfer deck, they're 3 cost. they can stop hella in their tracks.
Yeah, the thing I love though about the Enchantress is with Enchantress, you counter Devil Dino, you counter Patriot, you counter Zabu,
Right.
you like I can keep going, right? Enchantress is such a damn good card. And like I've been playing actually prior to the Zabu nerf, I was actually playing Enchantress a lot. And as a 2-drop with Zabu, I'm telling you, it was like, it's got to feel like one of the best cards in the game. It's like, oh, you just played your card? Well, here's me ruining your entire deck and also playing Rock Slide. You know what I mean?
Right.
Or also playing Darkhawk. So I'm kind of glad the Zabu got nerfed because Enchantress was feeling pretty wild as a 2-cost. Still extremely valuable as a 4, especially when you consider it's also 4 power, but can literally just dismantle a lot of like the synergies and decks you're seeing out there. Like single-handedly counter, win the game, destroy everything.
Yeah, and you know, it's what I think is wild that we kind of saw a big uptick with MODOK that no one was really expecting. I mean, I'm sure people thought about it, but like Morbius is what everyone's head was going to. I think that the Collector is such an interesting card because he's just like Dracula in the sense he doesn't have ongoing, he doesn't have on reveal, and man, this guy got a big boost too. It's not as big as Morbius, but I've seen some big collectors come out, and he's much trickier to figure out how to kind of beat him. And so I think MODOK did a lot, not just for discard, but for bounce and collector, and that's where I'm personally playing him, Alex, as well. So those are the main counters that I would do, guys. Luckily, they're tech cards. You should have them in your deck anyway. Let's move to our last subject and give the most time to it because, guys, Zabu, Surfer, they're nerfed. We're going to talk about that and how it impacts the game. But we want to talk about what we both think are the top 10 either best cards or our current favorite cards. You could kind of put both spins. I will say it's a lot. Alex, I had a tough time ranking 10 because there's so many good ones. We don't know each other's list. What did you think about that, the assignment?
I thought that it was always challenging. The ranking's hard. Like I'm very easy to say, okay, this card's got to be there, this card's got to be there, this card's got to be there. I can fill the list pretty quick, and then it's the rank. I'm like, man, but like this card does this that like no other card does. So like that's the thing about Marvel Snap that's so hard. These cards don't exist in a perfect vacuum, and the way they work together can really elevate them and make them like god tier. But I do got a list of 10 that I'm excited for, and I'm really interested in hearing yours because I bet you we're gonna have some overlaps, but I'm most excited to hear the cards that I wildly disagree with.
Yeah, let's go. We're going to go 10 and 10 and go up, guys, and reveal them at the same time. I agree, like putting them in specific slots. Don't get overworked, guys. If you hear something at 7 and 5, you know, it was a tough cookie to try to get these in the right order. I left off Zabu and Surfer because the nerf just happened.
Same
right?
Here.
So like, yeah. And I don't think either is going to be on there. Maybe Surfer might creep in the bottom 10. I know that my 11, 12, and 13, though, were so good. And it was like, they can all be 10. So it is tough if leaving some of those off. So we're going to go with the top 10 cards currently in the month of February, starting with number 10. Alex, who did you pick for your 10th best card right now in Snap?
Coming in at number 10 for me was Killmonger.
Killmonger. Ooh, okay. And I honestly, listen, a commenter said this is just a for the video viewers, it's just a variant showcase for Cozy. You're not wrong. In one of my shops, I finally got a Killmonger that I'm excited to have. This guy is just awesome. The base card, look at this. The base card looks like a gold back and inktified together. It's fantastic. But tell me why you have Killmonger at 10.
I have Killmonger at 10 because he completely shuts down Zoo altogether. An entire archetype cannot function because of Killmonger. I also like Killmonger because there are so many sunspots out there, and when sunspot goes down, it's often a win condition because people rely on sunspot. So Killmonger defeats one of the best cards in the game. It defeats a archetype that quite frankly is making a comeback. I remember someone named Cozy Snap legitimately like a week ago made a video about how Zoo is back, and Killmonger says no, it's not. So I like Killmonger at number 10.
He's such an interesting card because he kind of floats in and out of the meta, obviously with destroy decks and stuff, but he does so much at once. I do like it. He's not in my top 10, but I can't agree. Great card that has just so much utilization. I know when I'm building my decks, I'm always considering like, can I throw in Killmonger? Should I kill? Should I not? And so I like that at number 10. My number 10 is also 3 cost, and she probably could have been higher, but I wanted to throw her at least in the top 10. I made the list, and then I put her in last. Wave, man. I think Wave, the fact that she can restrict so much as well as provide. Now, obviously, your opponent is getting the exact same advantage, but 2 differences to that. Number 1, you built the deck with Wave in mind, and number 2, playing her on 5 with Death who I don't have on this list. I think Death is really good. I probably should stop spoiling the list. But I think Wave brings enough for me to warrant her as one of the better cards in Snap at the moment.
I agree. And Wave is obviously a nerf candidate that we've talked about very often. It's a card that like is just so interesting. But the thing I love about Wave from a design perspective is that it sets up this counterplay where like, yes, you're building your deck around Wave, but there's a good chance they got an answer too, you know?
Yeah.
And I think that's why a lot of people were like leadering Waves, because just to match and kind of get a bit of an edge. But now, I mean, who's playing leader now? Basically nobody. So, I mean, Wave is in this really new, interesting spot where like, especially when you consider how it shuts down a lot of the combo decks. And actually, it's going to do a lot better shutting down Zabu now, because the Zabu kind of like was effectively like with the 2 costs was kind of getting through the Wave effect. Now it's not going to do that. So I think Wave actually low-key got buffed with the Zabu nerf. Number 9 for me, and it could have been higher. I actually started with it higher. It's Storm. Storm is one of those cards that, like, honestly, it's a pool 2 card, and once you unlock it, the game is never the same. You have the ability to completely control, like, a location. You got location correction. You can basically force and bait an opponent to play into that location. You have immense follow-up capabilities with so many different cards. Storm is an amazing card that provides you with so much utility that, quite frankly, is not seen anywhere else in the game.
Yeah, Storm is nuts. Storm can be used in so many different decks. I mean, Surfer obviously has her in there, but guys, Storm is always going to be pretty relevant because, again, you get to choose when you're going to shut that location down. Like the pick of Storm for sure, and definitely one of my favorites. And all of her variants are banger. Every single one is good. As a side note to Storm, my number 9, and you know what? This was really tough to place. Could be a lot higher. I still think is plenty fine. And you guys are probably going to say I probably should have put it higher. But you know what, guys? I've got the one and only, you hate him, Darkhawk here. I took him way down. Obviously, he would have been one of the best cards in the game with Zabu. With the Zabu adjustment, he's still going to be fine. You have him and Mystique on 6. That's still completely busted. Value alone, I love him. He depends on a lot of other cards, so I don't want to necessarily give him the best treatment in the world. He is, in fact, I think, the only pool 5 card I have on this list. Again, there I go with spoiling it. But Darkhawk he's just solid, man. He's a value play. He's a really good card for multiple reasons. And as long as you've got like Rock Slide, or if you have Korg and Black Widow, and just pair him with a couple cards, he's going to get the value. He's going to get the value. And there's no one that does what he does. And so I definitely had to put him on my top 10 list, Alex. Let's go to number 8, Alex. Hit me with your 8th best card.
My 8th best card, I selected Odin. Odin is a card that I feel like in Pool 1 is often forgotten about, and it activates so many combinations that you could really forget how good Odin is. Like Odin, there's so many cards you cut in Pool 5 and Pool 4 that like have all these different abilities, but Odin replicates that ability, and it's an 8 power. So, I mean, I think that Odin is a great card, and anytime you're looking to make a combo-centric on reveal deck, it's one of the first cards you consider.
Dude, I like that you picked Odin. Yeah, I don't know if I had Odin in my top 10, but I do agree that he kind of, on reveal, is just so powerful. And we know it's going to be around Snap for, like, ever, right? So he's like a Mystique in a way, a super absorbing man with more power and really can get some crazy, probably the craziest things happen in Snap. And so I'm sure a lot of people are glad to see him. Pool 1, too, man. Gotta love that. You know it's great when you see Pool 1 on somebody's top 10 list. That's pretty good stuff, man. So Darkhawk on the last, right? Odin here, kind of all over the place. Now my number 8 is going to be, and again, the placements were tough. I had to throw in Devil Dinosaur here at number 8. Arguably could be way higher. Devil Dinosaur, instant value, just instant value that you control. Alex, we know we're going to talk about him today. I know you've got him on your list too, so I'm sorry to bring him up first. But Devil Dinosaur, man, talk about just a free-to-play winner, a champ. I know I'll let you say your comments whenever you bring him up, because again, I know he's probably going to be there. But like the free-to-play card of Value Town. You can obviously Mystique him. You can play him with one other card on 6, like She-Hulk. There's so much to do with them. And then now there's more and more cards that are amping up that power, Alex. So love me, the T-Rex with the tiny arms. Let's move on to number 7, Alex. Hit me.
Number 7 for me was Sarah. For the simple reason that Sarah, while already seeing a nerf down 1 power from 5, Sarah continues to be a card that you can reliably play into like massive combo lists, whether it be Silver Surfer, whether it's going to be perhaps new Zabu lists. And then, of course, you have the negative lists as well. Sarah continues to be a very unique card in the sense that it enables a turn 6 and turn 7 that can be absolutely wild and quickly outpace anything an opponent can play without the discount of Sarah.
I like it. I like it. Yeah, Sarah is, Sarah again. I'm sure people in here will say Sarah's a top 3 card, top 2, top 1, and I get it. I will give an honorable mention, and I know you will too, is America Chavez. It was tough not to do that. It was tough not to have America, right?
Yeah.
Just because of what
America
she does.
Chavez is such a good card. It's such a good card. It does what other cards just don't do. It has a very unique effect to Marvel Snap. It's not in my top 10, but I intentionally tried to keep it out because I talk about it too much, but it was hard. That is like card like 12 for me.
For number 7, Dr. Doom. Guys, Dr. Doom. Now, here's the thing. First of all, 615 stat line. Bam. You know, great. Always amazing. But I think what's so insane about him is the surprise factor. And that is what it is, right? These big cube winners. It's funny enough, I don't always choose to have Doom because I build a lot of different style decks that don't need the widespread necessarily. But I love that he's got the surprise factor. There's more limiting locations now more than ever in Snap, so he continues to get better as long as Second Dinner continues to make these locations that are just freaking frustrating to play against. But yeah, I mean, I'm never going to be mad about the 15 value spread across, and then you could ramp them. Dude, I love me some Doom.
Ironically, my number 6 is Dr. Doom too. So, I mean, I got to tell you, Dr. Doom is an amazing card. Naturally, it had to be on the list, and you absolutely got it perfect. With all the negative locations that we're seeing, the additional reach provided by Dr. Doom is so significant, and one might suggest he works wonderfully with my number 8 Odin, which is one of my favorite combinations in the game. It's just like, you know, you Electro, Dr. Doom on turn 5, Odin turn 6. You just smile the whole time. It's just a beautiful combo. So much power spread across all 3 lanes. Doom is just an amazing card that just never gets old.
Oh, yeah, for sure. Without question. Yeah, so I love that you said that because my next card is actually Sarah, which you've talked about too. So we kind of have 2 cards talked about. Sarah was so difficult to place, where to place, and because my head goes to Sarah Control, right? And I'm like, well, then you could put Cosmo up high and Shang-Chi. There's a lot of things that you could adjust because of different combos. But Sarah, yeah, man. I mean, you already talked about it, but the fact that she did get tamed a little bit with Surfer, which is why I tapped you down a bit. But she's always going to be relevant, especially with those Miracle-style decks. So I've got Sarah at my number 6. Number 5, Alex. Kick me off. What do you got?
Number 5 is where I slotted Devil Dinosaur for all the reasons why we talked about before. Brought Devil Dinosaur in at number 5. Could have been higher, but I felt like I was forcing it a bit. Like, Devil Dinosaur is an amazing card for all 3 pools, all 5 pools, I should say. But realistically, I think 5's where it belongs. Like, I think there are cards that hit a little harder, but this is a card that I will never get sick of putting in a deck.
Yep, absolutely. I think Devil, man, yeah, he's just crazy. And I'm so glad he's a pool 1 card. I've always been so happy about that. Well, at my number 5, Alex, I had a card that they were all razor thin. These were all razor thin at this point, and man, I could put this thing so much higher. But Dracula, man. Dracula is such a unique card in the game. I think with the Zabu adjustment, you know, at least that's going to be a little bit better. But he still is uncounterable. There's no way to stop what he's going to do. And, man, just the fact that you could play out your decks to make sure that he gets a great cost card. And again, I'll echo, there's no way to counter that. With discard, he's even better. And the MODOK plays with the bigger Apocalypse. Dracula is such a catch-all for me. And I love him at this spot. No question about it. Hit me with your number 4.
My number 4 is where Arrow comes in. I think Arrow continues to be one of the absolute best cards in the game. Your face lit up as soon as I said the word. It's on your list too. Come on. Of course it's on your list too.
Arrow? No.
Yeah. But honestly, an absolutely amazing card. Single game. It's a game winner. You have Arrow on turn 6. It's just as effective as it is on turn 5. Counters Galactus. It does so many things right. Arrow is such a god tier card. It actually bothers me when I think about it because Arrow for the longest time was in beta. And yes, it was technically a little weaker, but no one played Arrow. But it's not the power that makes Arrow good. It's the effect. And this card was low-key incredible the entire time, and no one played it. And now we see what it accomplishes. Now we see what it does, and Arrow's an easy top 4.
I'm trying to keep my composure. I'll talk about my wife here soon. Next up on my number 4, I've got She-Hulk. And She-Hulk is our newest Pool 3 card. And talk about Value Town, the Miss Mayor of Value Town. You can play her on 4. If you didn't play anything on 3, you can play her on with a 5 cost on turn 6 for free on turn 7. She-Hulk, we've called it. We called it with Zabu. Anything with cost reduction at all that you can control is going to be top tier in Marvel Snap. And She-Hulk is just one that I always slot in my decks. Why not? You know, she's always going to get that value. She is counterable in some ways, but again, she's just a mass amount of power without expecting it and is one of the value cards. I did a poll on your favorite 6 cost. She won. Most of the people in there were like, wait, she's 6 cost? Because no one plays her at 6 cost, Alex. But even if you need to, she's 10, you know? So she's fantastic. Easily my number 4 card. We're in the top 3, buddy. Let's bring it home. What's your number 3?
My number 3 is Sunspot. The reason why I put Sunspot in at number 3 was because it's one of those 1-drops that you can rely on in so many different deck lists. When you don't know what to play, you often just add Sunspot because it just smooths your curve. It gives you that reach in like stormed locations that you might want. It is just an amazing card that honestly can fit in so many different decks. You almost never feel bad playing Sunspot on turn 1 because it is just an incredible card.
Dude, I wanted to put him in my top 10 so bad. And mainly because of the surprise factor, too. Like, you just keep your opponent on their heels. And I love that about him. I love that the opponent has to play another card to match it. And if you're only losing, because oftentimes Snap comes down to just, like, small numbers, right? If you're losing by 3, you're like, well, I guess I'll just boost that up a little bit and play a card. And yeah, man, Sunspot easily could have been in the top 10. Glad that we picked a couple of different flavor choices. I would have him lower than that, but I definitely think he should make the top 10. And I get it 100% why. He is the 1-cost card. And outside of making him a 1-0, I don't know how you adjust him because he needs to keep his... I love his shtick in Marvel Snap. So Sunspot's your number 3. Oh, my bad. So Sunspot is your number 3. My number 3 is a card that by herself doesn't do a lot. But I truly think is what she creates has me put her into just about all the decks, man. With ongoing and all, she could probably be lower. I just didn't want to put her lower, man. Mystique is the name, man. Mystique number 3 was an easy decision for me. I think that now that we have Darkhawk where he is, we've got Devil Dinosaur copies. There's so many great ongoing cards. Morbius, as you just talked, she has, because she's 3 cost, you can use her in a variety of different ways. And then, oh yeah, like love the Odin pick, but this girl opens up the giant Wong and can kind of make the same effect for only 3 costs. She is counterable. There are ways to go around it, but Mystique finds so much application that Absorbing Man didn't even make the list, but Mystique can because of what she does in the game. If Absorbing Man was 3, he would, you know, obviously be on here. Alex, number 2.
My number 2, I went with Shuri. I think Shuri is without question one of the most broken cards in the game right now. Probably a nerf candidate. I believe weeks ago you said Shuri at 4-0 is still one of the best cards in the game. And Shuri just enables so many different deck archetypes. Mainly ones that just win games. It's extremely difficult to counter, surprisingly difficult to counter because you have Zola plays, you have Taskmaster plays, you have Vision plays. There are so many things that are happening with Shuri that make it surprisingly difficult to counter. And honestly, the effect is so powerful in a game where power wins games that I think that it is easily one of the best cards in Marvel Snap.
Yeah, dude, Shuri's so good. Shuri's so good. And like laughably just insane. Shuri doubling the card. It just is always usable in so many ways. She doesn't need the 2 power. Take it from her, second dinner. Just take that 2 power because it doesn't matter. She does. She opens up a lot of different decks out there outside of just the on reveal, outside of Black Panther synergy, you know, outside the Wakandans. She's an amazing card. So amazing that I have her at number 2 as well. That's exactly my number 2, buddy. No question about it. I think Shuri's just a card with a lot of application. We're on to number 1. Right now, this is the card that Alex considers the best card in Marvel Snap. Who is it?
So a lot of things went into this decision. The first is its ability to be accessible. The idea that this is a card that many people can gain access to, I think is important for it being the best card. And the other thing is that it's just damn amazing. It has a huge impact on the game. It fits in almost any deck, and it has a very unique ability. This card is one you've mentioned because it's She-Hulk. I had to go with She-Hulk at number 1. drops down to pool 3, amazing effect, huge power, Moon Girl synergy galore, Bayro synergy galore. This card is just too good. It is number one for me right now, and I think that if you're in the token shop and you see She-Hulk and you have tokens and you don't have She-Hulk in your collection and you do not buy She-Hulk, you're asking for defeat. You are accepting defeat from the hands of victory, because She-Hulk is, in my opinion, the best card in Marvel Snap right now.
Yeah, and I think that this really talks about what we just said. It's so hard to interlace the placings, because there's all these could be so high on the list or lower on the list. I'm actually grateful outside of Magneto, and I probably forgot. Well, we did this list pretty quickly on the top of our heads. But you got a lot of the ones that I wanted to put on, and I'm sure probably vice versa. So I'm really glad about that. She-Hulk, Manny, I don't have her at 1, but I could understand the applications at 1. Guys, are you even surprised? Are you surprised that I made a top 10 list and I didn't have my wife at number 1? Arrow is by far the best card in Marvel Snap, and I don't even think it comes close. I think She-Hulk is great, dude. But the fact that she's 5'7", and she has the most unique ability in the game, and she's what you said, plug and playable, man. Plug and playable. Now, she's not a 1 cost at times, but I find myself winning more cubes, more games, and putting her in just most of my decks. There's no con of putting Arrow in your deck, because location and strategy and placement, it matters so much. And what else matters? Confidence, Alex. Confidence. I went up against Snapster. I'm sorry, Snapster, to bring it up. Went up against Snapster. He was playing a Sauron deck. He had Shuri. I was like, oh no, here comes the big bomb. And I arrowed exactly where I needed to, where he had 1 card and it put them all there. And I won, even though he outpowered me, right? So I think Arrow, because of those reasons, ticks every box. You can make her a 5'6". I dare you. She's still up here, man. The effect is too unique. And it was a no question. I started my list with Arrow.
Of course you did, because you were thinking with your heart.
With my heart, or yeah, I love Arrow. Good card altogether, guys. I want to know what you think. I want to know if you guys think our top 10s, both of ours combined, included the cards that you had, and obviously, who did we leave out, Alex? How could you snub whoever? So we want to hear that from you, Alex. Anyone that any other mentions you want to give in this top 10?
The one that really, like, I don't want to admit that I kind of forgot about it, but when you mentioned it, I was like, oh my God, it was Dracula. When you mentioned Dracula, I was like, of course. Mystique was in my top 15 originally, but I was like, yeah, Mystique, I think I kind of felt like Mystique gets a lot of love, but it's still a 3-0, right? And I was like, I wanted to talk about a couple other ones, but the Dracula, when you said Dracula, I was like, oh, Dracula should definitely be over a Killmonger, right? Like, I was like, oh, Dracula, I forgot about Dracula, but yeah, so that was the one that like kind of snuck under my radar, honestly.
Yeah.
Didn't give me much time to write the list.
I know, we did this very fast off of core memory. My, the one that I left off that like, I'm like, he's in there in my heart, Daredevil too. I think he just has so much application, and he's just such a good card all around. You get to see what your opponent does. I mean, how is that not good? So Daredevil was on my list as well. So guys, want to see y'all's list. Thank you guys for coming over to the Snapchat. Again, the reviews are helping us so much. We're climbing the charts. So guys, if you can stop for a second and give us a review, it's so mind-blowing, Alex, to see us continue to climb up the charts in podcasts altogether. And it's a free way to help support what we do here. And hopefully you guys have loved that. We haven't missed a Snapchat, man. We have not missed a Snapchat. That is awesome to say. Well, you missed one, but we haven't missed it as a series, all right? And I know that we're going to keep doing this on a weekly basis, guys. So if you want to go check out Alex's subjects, there's a lot of bangers in there. We will be talking about that next. We'll put that down in the description below. You guys have a great rest of your day, and until the next one, happy snapping.